so I've been looking at this year, and then also there was a 2024 overview. Any questions about our financials? I had asked a question about reserve balance, and you were hoping to get that.
We got it. She did say that it may need to be updated a bit more as they're still going through their year end at the end of the month.
Okay. Any other questions on the financials? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. To agenda, bid board director election, and did all three applicants, I reviewed this before there was a third applicant, did all three applications get put into our executive committee package? Or
I think only two by the time we send it out. The packet for the full board will have all three. Anna Cardarella with Western Dairy Land applied.
Okay.
So,
we don't have, like, I would say that in general, the executive committee should, kind of use judgment. We don't have like a, this number of people should be from this industry, this number of people should be from this industry, but it is one of our, at least historical duties to kind of look at the, composition of the board and see if there's any like missing expertise or if we're loaded in one way versus another. So I actually haven't looked at Anna's because I think that came this morning.
yesterday, I can share like, her, why she's interested if you guys want to hear that.
Sure.
Says, I am the CEO of Western Dairyland Economic Opportunity Council. We own a building at 418 Wisconsin Street in downtown Eau Claire, which houses about 45 of their 170 employees. Western Dairyland is the community action agency serving Eau Claire County. We have many programs located within the Eau Claire office, including staff from Head Start, energy assistance, child care partnership, Fresh Start, Women's Business Center, and housing services, which serves those who are homeless or housing insecure. Western Dairyland is also purchasing a building downtown that will house our housing and family services staff and a day resource center. The center will provide a comprehensive, accessible, and team approach to working with people who are experiencing homelessness or are at risk of homelessness. It will provide a single point of access to many amenities, including a congregate meeting space to shelter from the elements, bathrooms, showers, laundry facilities, and social activities. The facility will also offer flex space for various agencies to provide on-site services at no charge. I believe it is essential to have a provider of housing services serve on the bid. Western Dairyland can offer insight into homelessness and housing insecurity and work with business leaders to improve Eau Claire for everyone.
Sorry I didn't request this prior to our meeting, but do we have a like updated roster currently?
Just this second.
So our bylaws that are still in effect until we replace them do not exclude someone from a nonprofit from serving. The restriction is like, you know, basically owning or operating or occupying a like real estate business within the district, which all three applicants do. We do have a further restriction to have more than half of the members as a owner, not just like, you know, a leasee. So that was the thing that I was gonna check on from a roster standpoint, last time I checked, we didn't specify, like when we were, electing, most recently we did not have the need for, or the restriction of it must be a business owner. But that would be like a real good executive committee check.
So, and I guess it doesn't matter in this case because they're, obviously they do have a property currently in our district. Do we know if this additional property is going to be in the North Barstow district that they're purchasing, or is that?
I can't say.
But I don't know of any plans of them moving their current
Right.
state.
They'll still have services there,
Yeah.
only their housing service will move into the new facility.
So, just, excuse me, because I'm still getting up to speed on some. So at least in the new information, 11 members on the board. And I just recall, I thought at the last meeting we had that we just had 3 people elected. Did I miss something?
We have 3 people elected to the committee. So we elected our 11th spot in December for 2025, and then Greta sold the refillery and no longer holds the seat. So we're at 10 members of the board, and if we fill one space, then we'll be back up to 11.
Okay, so 3 people, I guess my question is 3 people have applied for one position, is what?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I did not do a good job of opening,
And-
explaining what we're
And
doing.
I'll just kind of add, this is probably a good place. I attended the last advisory committee appointments and with the discussions of how to manage this structure. And they were pretty well in agreement with what we said, that they felt emphasis by us was appropriate. That the process now going forward for them, that they have agreed to is that as we've already done, they apply to the resource form on the city site, and we don't have our own anymore. And there again, we can suggest that people apply to that, anybody that we feel appropriate. Then the bid would notify city staff that we have an opening coming up. Then they'd provide to us the list of applicants through that. We would provide our list of suggested applicants to the appointments committee. They would review it with this, strongly into our favor unless there's something that they saw they didn't agree with for various reasons, and then just pass that recommendation on.
Sure, okay. That's what I was just trying to figure out, how many we have.
One
and,
seat,
one
3
seat is
applicants.
open, 3 applicants, got it.
Anyone pull up a roster so we could do a quick tally of?
Yeah, I have Ken Ackerman with Mayo, Crystal with Menominee, Julia Pablo, Jason
Well,
McMahon.
yeah, I know them, but does it have it marked on there as, like, usually on the right column, we have property owner versus
They
registered?
have Ps, they have 4 Ps listed there, but I don't know how updated that is.
So that might not be updated.
Yeah.
So
Well, you've got 3, Crystal, Julia, Jason, ready.
Ken is an
Joe.
interesting one, because it's the same situation that, Mayo does pay in.
Oh, not nonprofit, sorry.
Yeah.
Non-property owner, it's an occupier. Are you
So
saying?
he represents
Sure, the
a
property.
property owner. He is a property owner representative. That's a good way of putting
We've
it.
got lots of property.
Okay,
Six right here that are on board. Joe, John, Jason.
Okay.
Julia, lots of J.
so then,
Crystal.
so a leasing is not an issue. Like, we don't have to
Absolutely.
We don't have the numbers
exclude.
problem.
Okay,
Okay, so, we're gonna just take.
so then Nick, oh my gosh, it just went there.
Brianna.
Brianna and Anna would all be eligible for election through our current bylaw. And we don't have like a charter as an executive committee, we don't have to make a recommendation. I don't have any like concerns over like we're heavily weighted in one way or another.
I would just say this sounds like something you'd want to bring to the whole,
Yeah.
Committee to just talk about, I know one of the three people not well, kind of thing, and I just would like to, I think it's a good discussion point for people on what we're trying to accomplish, and, rather than the three of us telling them here's what you should do, I'd rather it be the other way.
I'm fine with that.
I don't see anything with any of the individuals that would be a flag that we definitely.
Right, that's what I see too, yeah, but, well, wanting to get involved for all the right reasons.
Okay, so the possible action required would have been an official recommendation, and I'm hearing that we are not going to make official a recommendation. So moving on to the bid operating plan. I attended a meeting, we were there, with Janessa, a representative from the Water Street, bid was Jake Rassy and Ann Sessions. There was no South, Barstow representative. And we spent about 3 hours going through a draft that had come from, city legal. It sounded like Blake had done the majority of the drafting, but Janessa was the attorney, that was in attendance at the meeting. Billy was there, Dave Solberg, it was a while ago, I can't quite remember who else.
I think Stephanie was,
Sorry, Erin.
Erin, Clara.
Clara was there too, yeah.
Claire was there. Kate there?
I don't think she was at
Okay.
that one.
We went through the draft. I rewrote what was provided with, attempts to make it as short and easy to understand as possible. I struggle with, legalese. I'm sure you can read it, it's just fine, but, you know, I really wanted something that I felt confident in, understanding, implementing, and, you know,
Basically,
confident.
the first thing I tell lawyers when we hire them is, if you write like a lawyer, we don't want you around. I mean, you have to do certain things, obviously, you have to meet the criteria, but write so people can understand what you say.
And then the other thing that I did was, make it closer to what we already have, in existence. And then the items that we discussed as a board being important to us, including like that list that we brought to city council. I kind of tried to massage some of the issues as far as like being able to hire an attorney. You know, instead of just saying like, you know, we have the right to legal representation outside of the city attorney's office, I wrote that, you know, we'd be able to hire an attorney for advice or official legal opinion. You know, to basically say like, they were not trying to go to battle.
So, question, a couple of things that I was reading through. If I recall, about a week or 10 days ago, you sent a draft to the city attorney's office and asked them to look at that. Did they respond at all?
TPIC responded that Janessa was on vacation and, that the city attorney's office would, you know, work with us to make sure that we had a viable draft. I didn't respond in part because I was on spring break and because like, I felt like maybe it required a conversation of, I don't want the city attorney's office to rewrite our operating plan. I would really like the operating plan to be written by the board, and then, you know, the city attorney's office would be required to provide a letter of whether or not, or, you know, like they hopefully could provide a letter that says that we meet the legal requirements. And then, you know, they can advise us the issues that they see, they can advise city council the issues they see, but I really want this operating plan written by the bid board. So I didn't respond and saying, no, I really don't want you to rewrite mine.
Well, I
Because
didn't
he
think
said
that's-
it
I didn't
changed
think that's-
substantially.
Yeah. Well, but it hadn't changed in 20 years, right? Isn't that
Right.
the problem, if you will, that people are, using something that was drafted 20 years ago and nobody's really looked at since? And
Well, and this has gotten, we've definitely gotten more detailed than any previous operating plans were always left, at that time intentionally vague. This gets into a bit more detail, which, right or wrong, it's what we're doing at this point. There again, if the city attorney has any, absolutes in there, I don't know. I mean, they've been involved in the discussions to this point as well, so.
And I don't wanna speak for the city, but generally, when attorneys advise municipalities, whether they're outside counsel or inside counsel, it's not on the policy, it's on whether what you've decided meets the legal requirements, which is what we're asking them to do. And if we meet legal requirements, one would hope that they would say, yes, you do. Whether we agree or disagree, our job is to say, does it meet statute? That's what you're asking from them. If it comes back differently, well, then you have to react to it when it does. Otherwise, I think you just ask, kind of thumbs up, thumbs down. What is it that works and what doesn't?
Which is kind of what I tried to convey in my email when I sent the draft, but maybe, so here are the things that like make me feel like I don't know where we quite stand with the city attorney's office. He responded saying there's substantive, sorry, I can't read. Changes from the document she shared, so we will need to take a look at those and continue to assist the bid board on those matters. And then all things we can continue to assist the bid with as we update the operating plan to meet the state law, city code, and further shared objectives of a successful, effective, and welcoming bid district downtown and community. So I don't know what updates are needed to meet state law, city code.
Well,
So-
I would just go ahead.
I think the reason for waiting for Janessa is she was a part of that meeting when we talked through what the
That's what I
bids
was
wanted, and
Yeah.
all that. I think there were some concerns that, there was stuff that, has already been, discussed, like the attorney, and that was reviewed and a vote was done by
I
council.
disagree.
Okay, I'm just sharing and then there is a vote tonight on the appointment stuff, so once that goes through, then that will help dictate some of the stuff in it. So I think it's just discussing some of those things.
So the attorney issue was removed from resolution, I believe it's called. But I don't think there was a vote on that issue. And, really if it's in the operating plan and then it doesn't go through because of that, that would be
Wasn't there amendment to include that?
It included it originally, the amendment stripped it out, so there was never actually a vote on that.
Okay, I thought there was a amendment to put it back, but I don't remember.
Not
Thought there
the,
was an amendment to the amendment. or
that's why
something.
I voted
Okay.
against it.
The whole document was an amendment, right?
Yeah, basically the whole
Just
document.
wrote
is in that.
And the
But I was
resolution-
thinking there was a follow-up amendment
Yeah.
to that. 'cause
And
you can-
resolutions isn't necessarily legal
Yeah,
binding,
it's not-
it's
it's
just
not an
a
ordinance.
recommendation from council.
Well, there again, I think one of the main things is getting this all down on paper in some form like this, that we have struggled. Our problem this whole time is getting an absolute yes or no on certain items. And by having this down on the paper, my hope is that
Yeah.
we get that yes or no, there's an absolute by ordinance. And we've just not been able to receive that yet on many of these items, so.
Well, and often, as I read it, it didn't say that the city attorney isn't our attorney. It is, but we have a right to ask for additional information if we need it from, and we have to vote to spend our own money to do that likely. So there's some issues there, but I just come back to most things you would hope you can just walk down the hall and get your question answered. But if it's something where the board or the executive committee, or even our staff feels like, well, they're telling us something different than is in chapter 66, well, then we might need an opinion from somebody other than the people in this room. And not necessarily from a lawyer on our board, but go out and hire somebody who does chapter 66 work to say, here's what it is. So I think that's all you're really asking, right? I mean, that's kind of the idea. And I can't imagine that there's other ways that happens, and I've shared this with you before, that, police and fire commissions, when something comes up, generally the city attorney gives them advice, but sometimes it's the police chief versus the council, and now they both need separate counsel. That's what I'm seeing that you're trying to get to, right? Is that sort of thing.
But I think I see it a little bit as, similar to other contract items that we could put out there. We have, for instance, we wanna work on the speakers in the district. We go and we hire a consultant or an engineer to advise us on what's the best route to do that. I guess getting advice from an attorney on certain things, I don't see any differently than that from my perspective. We're not taking them on as a retainer to legally go after the city for something. I see it as an advisory role as much as anything.
So as it's been shared is that, the bid is a part of the city, and so the city attorney represents the bid. So the bid going out and hiring an attorney separate, would not be permissible.
I bet there's situations in which the city
I'm not sure I
doesn't
agree.
feel, like their, 1 to 3 people in the office don't have the experience that they need on a certain issue. So the city would go and hire an attorney that specializes in something that they're interested
Yeah,
in.
and
For
if-
example, when we look to do capital improvement, and we're talking about possibly putting improvements on other people's buildings and who's going to manage that, like there might be an attorney who went through this in Hartford, Wisconsin, that can amend a contract that they already created. And why wouldn't we work with that attorney instead of, someone who is unfamiliar with the issue?
Well, but I would take a little bit issue with what Jason just said, and that is that if it's a question in our normal course of business, I think that's what the city attorney is here for. We don't have to pay somebody to do that. That's what they're supposed to do for us. If they're telling us you're operating outside your, statement of work here, well, then maybe we want other advice to say, we don't think we are, and here's why. I think those are two different things.
Sure.
And that's what you're getting at, Billy. I think there's a little bit, but you're also,
Right.
I don't see the absolute that, I understand what was in the memo, that it seemed to say absolute, but I don't necessarily agree with that either.
If there were questions that the attorneys didn't feel they were able to answer or another attorney was needed, the city could hire an attorney to work on that and help with that. Not necessarily to bid. So like as neighborhood services, if I didn't agree with what legal said, I couldn't with my budget go hire an attorney to get a different opinion. So with being a part of the city, it would be the same.
You're a city employee. I'm not, like, I feel like this is a question that attorneys could have different opinions on.
So if
Whether
our
it appl-
attorney says one thing and your attorney says something, then what do we do?
Then we have a problem.
Who hires the third
let's-
attorney, the
let's-
fourth attorney to
I
fit?
think the point is that
It-
we've been through this. We know your opinion, we know Steve's opinion. Julia has written it in there, and at this point, the document has to be reviewed by the full board and then sent to legal. If they still have a problem, then that's where, there is an attorney general that answers questions when nobody can come to an answer.
Well, and it would be nice to get though from this.
Oh, totally.
that
A
says,
statement,
Yes,
yeah.
you can, or here's why you can't.
Yeah.
And they might be right. They might say, here's why you can't, and chapter
Exactly.
66 says exactly this, and here's why.
Yeah.
And if we all say, oh, now we get it. Okay, cite me chapter and verse, that's why we have laws, right? And so I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that if they're going to say absolutely you can't do this, tell me where it says you can't do this. But I agree too that we don't want to get into, we all have lawyers saying, no, do this, do that.
Right.
And then who's the arbitrator in this situation?
Right.
And
Well, they're probably across the river as the arbitrator and
Yeah.
we're a black robe.
one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this to the board's attention in our April, even though it's happened in May, meeting is that, our process is kind of slow for getting this through our board and council approval. And my goal is to have this in place when we, ask approval of our budget, or that by the time, either with or by the time we're getting our budget approved, that this is getting approved as well. I think that would be a good annual cadence. I
So do we
think
have
that
to-
we've kind of discussed this, like
Just
that.
submit this by October, is that?
You guys
August.
need your budgets by the end of August. It was extended
Oh,
into
okay.
September
That's
this
right.
year.
That's
You
right.
did it on the right, yeah.
So our meetings before August for April and June. So that's why even, I am trying to color inside the lines, right? Like I'm not trying to create a big mess. So I figured even if we approved it as a board, and then it went to council, that would be the conversation that is necessary prior to, maybe another version in June. Like, I'm not saying we have to approve or anything, in our April meeting, but we might need a couple tries at this, seeing that this is the first time it's getting updated in 20 years. And I am trying to be a rule following board, so I want to, give this the proper time and not, get super messy.
So, I mean, at this point, this obviously gotta go before the whole full board for approvals on this, so are we just looking to make a suggestion that this is what's presented to the full board at this point?
And a little bit of like, this is kind of what we talked about at the full board, and since then, there's been a conversation with the appointments committee. So in here, I wrote that all members are from either owners or occupiers of property in our boundaries. Now, the appointments committee has said that that's not really in line with what they'd like to see. So I didn't incorporate what the appointments committee, I want our board to be like, I represent the board.
And the discussion we had at appointments about that, and it's a little touchy, because the origination of this board, when we did that, we did actually have a board member from North Riverfront neighborhood, as a representative, as an adjacent
Mhm.
entity. So I guess, in cases like that, that was a good piece at the time, it was a good relationship to that neighborhood. And well, actually, but we'll just say it was, at the time, was working okay. So I guess I don't have a terribly strong opinion either way on that. I mean, obviously we want the vote from the district, but, I can see where it functions well to have others, able to sit on the board as
And I
well.
think someone in North Riverfront neighborhood is very different than someone on the south side.
Correct. Oh, yeah.
That was just interested.
But you can't.
No, I know, but I mean, again, when
We
we
can't
make
We can't
recommendations.
define that.
Yeah.
And by the, there again, the makeup of that appointments committee could change, but as of right now, the discussions we had were very positive that, they agreed that our recommendations to them would be those that they take unless there was something glaring that was a huge problem with someone, so.
So the items that I might, like, what do you think of on Thursday? Presenting, an alternate, or like, hey, we're gonna just do a show of hands vote. Does the board want A or B in our operating plan that gets, asked for approval? And the items that I feel like we might wanna alternate, like, if I'm the only one who, is willing to bring it to a vote at council that we want representation, the option for another attorney's opinion. Like, I feel like that would really help me in my position, as I feel like I've struggled through some of these items, like, it was just a year ago that the bid was told that we, can't advocate. And like, that was a hard few months to go through that process without, the ability to pay someone who has a law degree and is familiar with this. Like, we struggled because I can't, represent our bid well with my knowledge and expertise, and that's in part why we asked, you know, like.
Right.
Can at least read
Let's hear
this
your
stuff
motive.
comfortably. But,
Having
you know,
that, having
that's
that knowledge access is fantastic.
That's just one example of a few struggles that we've gone through, and I feel like we're still going through like this whole, you know, purchasing. There is stuff within the statute that says, like, if you don't meet a $300,000 threshold, you're not required to have the audited financials. Well, what does that mean for a bid? Like, why is it in there? How does it apply to us? So like that type of stuff would really help me in my role, but if the rest of the bid is like, hey, let's not be picking this fight because it doesn't matter to the board as a whole, well, then I don't want to pick the fight, you know? So like the attorney thing, I think we should have two options. Is it important to the board as a whole? With the risk that it's going to, you know, be a no vote, which is maybe something we don't want to risk. And then number two is the, you know, all members having ownership or occupation within the district. I think that's I don't want to fight that fight if the board does not want to, you know, risk a no vote on our operating plan. Do you see any other controversial, like without the attorneys telling me this is what I think, you know, would prohibit you getting a letter of support from the attorney's office? I don't know what the other items are that think of.
The right to contract, still has one on.
No, that one seems to really, I did change a little wording about, who has to follow the procurement process. Cause I did it, cause we've been told both ways, right? That the subcontractors would and the subcontractors wouldn't. I worded it in a way that makes sense to me that the subcontractors absolutely don't, and that the bid does. Now, that $300,000 threshold hasn't really been answered, so like I feel like I'm already conceding because I just like, I don't know, I'm tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is probably the other one. I'd have to think through more of like what the two versions of whether or not we're. Damn, really wish I could ask an attorney.
Well, I think the whole thing though about your request now for the city attorney's office is until they act or react to what you said, there's not much we can do except wait to hear what their response is. I mean, they may look at it and say, you know what, everything makes sense except this, or they may say, hey, we got 4 things we want you to reconsider. Why speculate what they might or might not do? Let them
Yeah.
respond, and then we can reply. You know?
Yeah.
That's how I would look at it.
Okay,
You know, and well, that's what I do. If they want to meet to talk about it, we can meet and talk about it. You know? Invite them to this executive committee.
Mhm.
There's things we can do. So I think the point we're trying to make is we're not trying to make an adversarial relationship, but we want to make sure that everybody's going down the track the same way, you know, issues arise, how are they going to be addressed?
Yeah.
Isn't that fair, right?
so at Thursday's meeting, maybe just open it up to say, like, are there any things in this operating plan that anyone disagrees with that would want to, you know, suggest an amendment before we further, I don't know, ask, like, I don't know if we're like, yes, adopt this operating plan, send it to council time, or,
I would say, because again, it looks a lot different than what I saw when I came on the board, right? I mean, it's obviously a much different document.
Mhm.
My recommendation would be we bring it to the board for discussion. Initially here, and say, you know, we've asked for comment from the city attorney, but we also want to have comment from the board.
Okay,
Because if board members say, well, what about this, or we don't want that in there.
Yeah,
We just as soon talk about that with our group here and with the attorneys, right? So I would say we just bring it on Thursday for a minute.
Excuse me.
We're all, I mean, what we're at, is there things we didn't put in there? Are there things we should put in there?
and then in June, we would, try to approve a version of the operating plan that would then be requested for approval or sent back to city council. And if it were to get sent back, then we would have still our August meeting.
Yeah.
To reapprove it basically in, we'd be doing our budget and our operating plan in August, and the operating plan should just be a,
If we as a group make changes as a result of what happens on Thursday or proposed changes, is there any open meeting or open records issue with sending it out to the entire board for written comments back to the chair?
Yeah, you can't, communicate back and forth. You could send it to me
I was gonna
with the,
say, or hired services.
you can send it back to me because there would still be a concern of people replying all, even
Oh.
if it was with hired services.
Got it.
If you want to send it to me
We
and
w-
people reply directly to me and I can make a list of notes to share,
No, Billy, we wouldn't be replying
Okay.
all with just hired, with Becky. Like, that's a personal obligation. As
And in
a
our
member of
contract, I
this.
have to uphold open meeting law and policy, so there'd be no reason that I.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to get people's comments, if there are changes made to what they have without stepping over the.
We have,
So you're just looking to have any potential suggested updates in hand before the next meeting, so we can bring that forward.
Right,
Yeah.
so that, I mean, different people might have different areas that, or somebody sees a type.
yeah. So we had talked about having the ability to have a shared drive so people aren't conversing back and forth. That was approved, Billy.
was it?
Yes.
Okay.
This is uncomfortable, but yeah, I think it was. We had a document, this is in the past, we just discussed this at a meeting somewhat recently, that as long as there was an interaction and discussion between you, that there could be a shared drive that people can access to review any updates, suggestions made, but not have an open dialogue. So if you made a red line change to one section, you could load that there, no discussion, but people could see it. And then could add other changes. But again, we'll find out if that's legal. And if not,
Well,
it can be
again,
done as an
that's-
individual email.
Yeah. and
With
that's
no-
something City attorney should tell us whether we can or can't do it.
Well, and there again, it's information that we're just collecting to bring forward to the next meeting. But we're not suggesting any discussion amongst that, just that we pull that together. Those are the ideas that we get on the agenda for the
Yeah.
next meeting. So we have everybody's collective, so it
Right,
doesn't
and
take
then-
another meeting.
Right.
I mean, that's
And
the other
then
option, is setting
either
up a
staff
committee to do
or
it.
Chair can say, I've gotten these comments on paragraph 4. Let's talk about it at the meeting.
At the
I mean,
meeting.
that's what I'm envisioning here,
Right.
and I just don't wanna step over the line on what we can and can't do, because if somebody comes after you for an open meetings or open records, you can get fined personally, and I'm not looking to do that.
Yeah, and
Or
I'll,
have that happen to any of you.
and I'll double check on it. I know there were concerns that even if people are updating a document together, that is a form
I
of
think it was in the
communication.
when Janessa was speaking on it and there was questions about hiring Becky and the ability to do that. I'm pretty sure Janessa was the one who answered. I can't remember the meeting, but I do know that we had talked about it as an option.
I think there's.
Follow
as long
up,
as-
thank you.
As long as we can see that those are things that are being brought forward to an open meetings discussion, not discussed beforehand. I think we're within, the rules there.
Yeah, and honestly, the thought of voting on this, on Thursday was not like, I'm still trying to navigate, like, this is the first time we've updated our operating plan, even though I've been on the board for 11 years, you've been on the board for 20.
Well, there's some
So,
big changes for everybody to take on.
Yeah.
There's a lot here that has to be absorbed, and there, everybody's different opinions on this is necessary.
Yeah,
So I think not necessarily an action item, but certainly notes, and I can't be here for Thursday's meeting, but some notes on what you're talking about, it, whether you're presented as A and B options, or if we just, there again, get suggestions at that time that we can update, and as long as we have a collective of things to approve by that August meeting, I guess that's what I would hope to see.
I'm hoping that the bid board will vote on this is what we want to send to council in June. That gives us one chance to go back and forth with council. And I don't expect this to be the process next year. I mean, next year we're gonna be like, oh, these are the little things we wanna change, we're combining two documents. I don't know, I don't mean to, council changes over, the bids change over. I don't think anyone's been thinking about this document in the last 20 years, the way that they're thinking about it in the last 6 months.
And there's a reason it hasn't changed in 20 years, is we didn't make major changes in the operation.
Mhm.
There are a few tweaks here and there, especially on an updated document like this, but this should be a document we can operate by without major adjustments for some time.
Took out all the years, so we could mainly just adjust the attachments or the appendixes. I don't have any reason to take action required. I mean, I thought maybe if we were trying to get, approval from the board, we would recommend approval or something as a committee, but we're gonna move on then.
Yeah, I would just, like I said, bring up the discussion.
Great. I don't know if you've noticed, but I started kind of putting action required on some stuff that I didn't know if we were actually gonna take action, just in case we had something. I don't know if that's best practice, but it's how
No, if it's possible, I would put
Okay.
it, just otherwise you won't be able to take action, so.
Okay.
You
Well, I
know,
think
and
the main call behind that is just that if anybody's looking this over and there's a question of action, that
Mhm.
they have a concern to come into the meeting, they can see it.
Yeah.
If we don't, we don't.
Great. All right. You talked about half of our time, which is actually right on track because the operating plan was the main thing that we needed to discuss today. Beautification grant application review is next, and I'll just preface it by saying that, in the application, we said that we would, consider applications at our first meeting of the year and then continue to do that until our monies are spent. This is the third year that we've done this. So, that we can always change our process for next year. And then, Erin, would you start with do you have a review of how much we budgeted? I think it's
In your
20,000.
packet, which I don't have. So the way I'm doing this is basically every month, if things come in, I'll put it in a new spreadsheet and then kind of show you where you're at. So what you currently approved to spend right now is the 13.5. That was 7,500 for Raggedy Man facade upgrade, and then Steve Hampson mural for 6,000. So that leaves you with 6,500 left. The two projects that were not approved, but not approved at the last meeting, was the tunnel mural over on the bike path by Mayo, which had a price tag of about $10,000. Just so you know, that artist has been approved by Parks and Waterways as well as the city council to move forward on that project. And then the L.A. Phillips Senior Center. Some of the questions that came up, at the last meeting, there was, just as a reminder, there was not quorum present until the last half an hour of the meeting, so they kind of had to squeeze all of the motions real quick at the end. And there was only 6 people. So the questions that came up regarding these two projects, one, the tunnel mural, was that the artist Joe Mauer, who applied, he's a well-known artist in Eau Claire and worked on your kiosk project. There was questions on whether or not artists should be allowed to apply for a grant to pay themselves. And I think that there would be a good reason to have more discussion around that when there's more time, because it was really just kind of thrown out by one person. And then the L.A. Phillips Center, that one was that is a nonprofit in your bid, but nowhere in your grant application does it say that you have to be a paying member into the bid, just that you have to have property located within the bid boundaries. So those two things should be something you probably should clarify moving forward. And I think with a full board, you'll have a much different opinion. Julia, you had mentioned possibly, pulling money to meet both of these projects as an option, and that's something else you guys as an exec team could possibly recommend. And if you did both, you'd be over by 9,000.
So on these two, did we notify them that they weren't awarded the first round, and did they reapproach us, or is this just the existing?
Yeah, Julia had me ask, to speak to both of them, which I did, to get a little bit more information. So, for LE Built specifically, they had just, received a large donation from someone who had passed away. Wondering if that would impact how they did this project, and, they are not using that money for that, as again, it was just, out in a woman's will. And so they're still looking to move forward, and they sent over some more pictures, which was included in your packet, of the outside of the space. Julie, I believe you're the one that was kind of saying that regardless of whether they pay taxes in their space, and how it looks to people passing by impacts the greater good of the bid. So there's just more information there.
Yeah, and that's a great board discussion, but my personal opinion on that is that, you know, the tunnel also does not pay taxes, it's city property. So like, my differentiation is not that like we're, you know, paying back, someone who created these funds in the first place. Mine is, does it meet our mission of, you know, bringing more people downtown and improving the experience, and therefore, you know, driving traffic to the businesses that do pay the taxes? So does it make our space look nice and desirable in a place that you want to visit and stay and enjoy and spend money at the businesses? So
I agree. I mean, it's an improvement within the borders of our district, and those types of projects I would certainly entertain. And I did have a little question, because it was actually the day before we brought this to the meeting that they were awarded a substantial, which
2 million.
is great to them, yep. And I didn't know whether, again, what that was gonna entail, if they were gonna be remodeling the building, or who knows what comes of that. So this didn't, you know, there again, we had some question marks to it.
So did they say what the 2 million has been allocated to?
No, but honestly, when you have a grant available for certain things, it really shouldn't matter how much money is sitting in someone's bank account. And if you do care, then you should ask that on the application.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I didn't know if, you know,
Yeah,
if
they
they
didn't
had
tell us.
said, oh, it's going to programming, then it might just kind of.
Well, I guess my thought was more so of, we didn't know what, you know, they were gonna put an addition where this was originally going to go with that money.
Exactly,
This
yeah.
is completely nullified, so that, you know,
Yeah.
if that's not the case,
Got it.
They just said that they will not be using that money on, the renovation in that area.
Okay.
The upgrades.
Okay.
Provided more pictures. And then with Joe too, there wasn't really much more, other than he said that, his original, quote did say that the project would cost more than 10,000, but that he would cover anything over that amount, by privately, funding it and looking for other donors and, sponsors.
I hate to do this, I gotta bust out.
Go look at those
You
people's
guys,
property.
you guys are fun. I did that already.
Oh, cool.
This is a different meeting. And I'm Aaron Brewster, by the way. I don't know.
Aaron, I don't know that we have met. I'm Tim O'Brien.
Okay, very nice to meet you.
Across the street, I'm over in Trust Point.
Alright, awesome.
Yeah,
Well, I hope you have a good rest of your meeting.
yeah.
We'll chat
Make
later.
sure, maybe I'll see you guys on Thursday.
Oh, yeah,
Be around.
it's another meeting.
Yeah, 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Don't go to bed. I actually kept roll call on the agenda for Thursday, because I'm like, maybe that will make me like say, hey, Aaron, would you like to introduce yourself? Or would you like introductions for the group? I am terrible. I'm so focused on like what needs to be discussed. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's always good, especially you come in to.
New board member.
Board is just go around the room again,
know.
and remember who you are.
And it makes people say something at 7:30 in the morning, which is half the battle.
Yeah.
Gotta get them to talk.
Yeah.
Without you there, what are we gonna do?
I
Candy Kathy over here.
don't know, I'm hiding, I'm going to DC, so.
I would suggest that you do make, at least, tell Julia what you think of these two projects, because I would be afraid that you might have less people again and can't
Yeah.
afford. So if you had something she could share. Not now, just whenever.
Yeah,
Well, it is
Well,
a
the-
committee in which we are discussing.
Yeah,
the project,
it is
so
the
we
project
can-
in front
I
of us.
think the point you made makes sense to me, again, being relatively new to this, is the goal is to make the downtown in North Barstow and across the river more appealing and more open and welcoming. And when I bring people in, I grew up in this city, I left for a long time, been back now for about 6 years. And when we bring our friends in, or even people we went to college with here and stuff, and they come and they see what's going on, and they're like, wow, this is downtown now? You know, and that's what, people can complain about parking all they want, and they will. I do, you know, I park illegally in Dave Stromel's place because I used to rent from him, so they come in at night, yeah. I'm like, oh, nobody's here.
I usually text him at least.
Yeah. Good point. 'Cause I do everything. But again, my point being is, if we think it contributes to the overall of what we're trying to do, then I think we should consider it. I'm not saying approve or disapprove, but certainly consider it. You know, I use the paths a lot around here, and anything they can do to improve those paths, I'm gonna say, how can we help? Because the amount of people I see out every day using them when I'm on my bike or when my wife and I are walking, it's cool, you know? And so from that perspective, whether it is, you know, the Trust Point building needs something, or whether it's the tunnel needs something because a lot of people walk through there, I think we have to consider it. That's my personal preference.
I would agree. I mean, aesthetics is a huge draw here, obviously, with the way things have progressed. The one question, of course, it does put us substantially over the budget we've allocated for that. Obviously, we have some funds we can pull from other places, but that's the one consideration.
And I'll just use the tunnel project as, you know, as I recall looking at what he said, was that he's asking for us to pay everything, basically, except his labor time. And so my question often when I used to be on a foundation board was, well, who else are you asking, and who else is contributing? Is there anything else that you can tell us about that? Have you talked to, you know, Mayo? There people are walking through there every day.
Mhm.
You know, well, they throw 2,500 to it. If we only throw 7,500, can we still get it done? You know, those sorts of questions, but I don't know, and again, I don't know enough about what's going on in the
Yep.
budgeting.
I believe on our form, do we not? I think we do have a spot on there that asks if they're requesting,
If they're-
contributions from other sources.
It says, are you willing to take partial funding for this
Okay.
project?
That's, and
Yeah.
he said no, I think, because he was
Yeah.
looking to get it done.
He said, I will be privately raising an additional funding to cover 3,000 for the cost of material. So I think basically he's asking us for the labor, and then we'll get the, did he answer whether or not the lighting was going to be upgraded as a part of this project?
Do
I'm
you,
obsessed, I'm sorry, I feel like I've asked this question.
so it's not part of his project, but that is the city initiative that's going on. Do you want to update them on that? Or do you know anything more about that?
On the,
Lighting in the tunnel.
In the tunnel where the mural is proposed.
nope, I don't have any updates on it. I can find out if you want one.
Well,
There
or give me a number of who I could call just to chat with before Thursday.
Is it
Um,
Steve Plaza?
Yeah, I don't know if it would be Steve, if it would be engineering, if it, yeah.
Well, Pembroke campus is doing this right now because mural project at Boyd. And I remember talking to Rod when I worked here about, there had been a grant the city was seeking on getting upgraded lighting kind of all over. So it started in the ramp and we got, where are we? The ramp. Okay, no, okay, yeah, that way. And then there was talk about upgrading lighting there as well. The bicycle and pedestrian, committee also had concerns. Jeremy Gregor was working on that to get the lighting upgrade. So I know that there's conversations about it, but this isn't included in his project.
But it would be awesome for
It
the
probably-
district if, like, oh, there's a mural, and because of the mural, like, lights are getting
Right.
upgraded.
But
It's really like dim and kind of like, kind of scary.
Yellow,
It's
so
very
we feel
yellow,
high
spooky
pressure
light.
sodiums, yeah. You said he does have approval from.
Council and.
Okay,
Okay, so
Do you want me to find out anything on the lights?
I'll take it on. Billy, you do
Okay.
so much for us. I feel like I can not put this one on you.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Have you
Absolutely.
ever had any of these applicants come to the meetings to discuss their projects?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The meetings just have been getting so long that sometimes it's hard when they invite people in.
Generally, that's the full board meeting when they come
Okay.
and speak.
Yeah.
That works
Thank
well.
you.
But yeah, we do. Invite all of them, and
Yeah.
some do, some don't.
Do
Yeah.
you want them to come? I thought we decided no the first round.
Well, yeah, because we were just like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
booked. And I really,
Joe is planning on coming anyway, just to listen, because he's interested in the public meeting, but I can certainly do a formal invite if you like. I know, it just creates like another 30 minutes of. Yeah. Yeah, another 30 minutes, really, that's the end of the sentence.
I guess,
if
we
you-
probably should at least just make sure they're aware that they can
Sure.
be
Yeah.
there.
I would say feel free to attend, in case there are questions, but we will not ask you to present.
7:30 is always a fun time
I
for me.
know.
Okay, so no presentation formal, but got it.
I mean, are you guys, is that sound
I'm
good?
comfortable with that.
I mean, once we get through this operating plan, I feel like we're gonna be able to get back to more of the what and less of the how, but like right now, it's just a slog. Okay, so we are not, I'm hearing that we're not going to make a recommendation on these. We want the board to consider them again. I'll probably give my same pitch of, we underspent last year, and I think that these are really good projects, but like highly visible. I know the trail is a little like, you have to be a pedestrian or a trail user to see it, but oh my gosh, if we could start the momentum towards that half moon,
Right.
Bay Beach, getting spruced up, that would be a big achievement for our district.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the appetite is with the city on that one, but.
Anybody knows anybody on the parks, the trails, or the road, when they did all that sealing last year on the roads, I'm like, why didn't you just do the bike trail too off Water Street? It's so beaten.
Yeah.
I don't wanna get a.
Another time.
But as a person who rides the bike paths
Yeah.
around here.
Agreed.
So before I move on, I will just say that if the executive committee wanted to make a recommendation that we pull from reserves, because of our underspending last year to cover both of these, it might move the discussion on a little bit quicker to, Thursday.
Yeah, we definitely had funds carried over from last year.
I think you had about
in reserve, so.
6,000. Oh, from reserve. I meant from the beautification grant. You didn't spend all 20. Oh, no, you only did 10
We
last
did 10
year.
out of 10.
Did we do? Okay,
We upped it this year
Interesting.
and we promoted it.
That's right.
yeah.
It's a $10,000 increase.
So there's 20 available for 25,
Right now there's only 6.
because some,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Basically, we'd be spending 30 out of the budgeted 20 if we move forward with both these projects. And when I first made this recommendation, I didn't think the mural was actually gonna move forward, so I was like, sure, give it approval, and it might not happen anyways, but now I'm excited that it might actually happen.
Real quick before you move on, wait, you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, I
recommendations?
just
Sorry, I
feel,
forgot.
I would feel comfortable just saying that you as the chair described that we can move money from reserves to do this if everybody feels it's appropriate. Because I think there's two questions that people are gonna ask is, the money side of it. Some people are more concerned about money things and some people are more concerned about getting projects done regardless. And that's a good balance to have. So I think if people understand that there is the ability to go outside what was budgeted, that might inform the conversation. And then they're probably gonna we're gonna tell them, and I support this. So that's how I would do it, rather than giving them a approve of going there. I think that's, again, it's a financial matter that the entire board should decide.
Yeah, if we made a recommendation, the recommendation would be like, or if we made a motion, it would be like, the executive committee recommend, approving both of these and pulling $9,250 from reserves. And that in no way becomes a motion. That's just like, we discussed it and we have an official opinion, which, like, I couldn't say the executive committee recommends approving this and pulling from reserves because, I can't advocate on behalf of an entity without a motion, which is like that whole thing that we dealt with last year.
I understand what you're saying.
That just carries a little more weight.
I would just say personally, I don't know enough to give an informed opinion. I mean, if the two of you say it's something that we should do, two and one who doesn't understand, so
You know, I guess, the discussions we've had to do, we've done things like in the past, more of a budgetary shift, line item shift. The board as a whole has generally, they don't see any issue with that as long as we're well within our
Within the
numbers.
overall
Yeah,
budget.
yeah.
So this 170 is give or take appropriate, but then you pull 50 every year into your budget, right?
We collect 120 and we plan to spend 50 from reserves. So
But
if
this
you
is your
look at-
reserve amount, right?
Oh,
Currently.
yeah.
Yeah.
It just happens to be the same amount of
Yeah,
our budget.
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but then 50 would be pulled, because you said it's not up to date as far as books close at end of month. So 50 would be moving into your budget. So you have about
I think
120.
We're looking at a 120 carry. right?
Yeah, okay,
Right.
that's what I just wanted to approximately.
Well, I will say, I mean, you feel, again, that historical knowledge, in fact, the three of you have historical knowledge of how finances have worked. I'm not uncomfortable. I think they're both good projects. I think they meet what we're trying to do. And it's what the city's getting known for, is like, nice looking place.
Yeah.
right?
And Becky's been contacted about helping with curate mural walk programming throughout the community. I do think this does connect your bid. That's the other issue. And South Barstow gets stuck the same way, like Barstow being really the only part of the bid that gets attention. So remembering that you guys extend to the west, you can see
Right,
other
so
ways.
through our district a bit, yeah. And then there again, moving towards our potential half moon projects and things like that. Now, we do have, obviously in our budget already, we do have, 1,000 slated for improvements to property and 26,000 towards street maintenance. So we do have some leeway there, depending on what projects we take on for those line items at this point.
Yeah, you haven't had snow removal since you.
Is it 26?
contract. That's
Yeah,
snow.
26,000
Yeah.
for improvement, yeah, or
Which is
maintenance.
still Sunday.
So we've got some flexibility right within the budget without even drawing on reserves at this point.
I know, and I was thinking that I should do like a little like recap of like last year, like what percentage we did of, like,
Finances look like.
or even the groups that we actually spend money on. But last year we budgeted 154, we collected about 120, and we only spent 82. So anytime that we have projects that like I'm excited to spend money on, I'm like, let's do it, because I don't want to have, like, the last couple of years, we've planned to do more than we did. But this year we've planned to even do more. So like, I'm sure we'll spend more money this year than we did last year.
Can I ask, as I understood when I was reading some of the stuff, is that anything we don't spend does automatically carry over into our account, if you will?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not like it reverts to the city or reverts to.
No,
other
there's a
things.
cash balance account
Okay.
that it goes into.
Okay,
It's segregated funds.
yeah,
There could be times that those are restricted for certain things. Like if it was, let's say, like the beautification grant from last year. So being it was already stated where it was gonna go, but that money wasn't spent, when it carried over, it was restricted to be spent on that, being it was already allocated for that. So for the most part, it's open funds, but there could be times where it's
But there's a
restricted.
lot of areas where money isn't spent, it reverts to general budget, or general.
Yeah, not with this.
Not what we do here.
Right.
And
Right.
just as a reminder, 5,000 is still unspent from the 2024 beautification grant because it will be done at the completion of the project for Leona's.
Yes.
And Leona's had an update. They had a little delay with their artist, but we'll update as soon as the project continues.
I guess my thought on it is, you know, make the full board aware that we have funds within our budget to take care of this, and we're well heeled in reserves as well, but, and just leave to the discussion.
Deal.
I think the decision to be made by the full board is ideal.
Okay. So 2025 capital improvements is our next agenda item, and,
Did you skip sponsor?
yes, I did, sorry.
Okay. No,
Sponsorship request is actually our next agenda item. Thank you, Billy.
no problem.
And we just have one sponsorship request.
Yes.
Jazz Crawl.
Different.
Um,
Well, yeah.
We've done sponsorship for them in the past. They're requesting, sorry, I should just let you do this. Didn't want to talk so.
Sure, yeah, they are requesting, just like they did last year, $1,000, which you guys did approve last year as well. So Jazz Crawl will be happening on April 20, nope,
11.
yep, there's 3 events in a row. April 11th, Friday night, so the crawl will be downtown. Barstow Street gets closed off right around 5 p.m. And then they have, as you well know, bands throughout the downtown. Something crazy, like 35 bands of different venues. They bring an incredible amount of money to the local economy through this, as they have people nationwide that come for this event. And then Saturday, they have more music and things to do, so people will be downtown all weekend long enjoying this. Just spoke to Quentin recently, so he's excited and of course willing to take less than the 1,000 if you guys see that as something you want to do. And you have plenty of room in your budget for sponsorships left, which I don't have a packet.
Well, we budgeted 13,000, we've spent 6,000, and we have 7. Well, maybe you added that one in. You did the math, so we have 8,000 left.
What did they
If
do?
we,
Oh,
if we
reverse,
spent
sorry.
this one,
I'll update it.
we'd have 7,000, that's fine.
If you spend it, yeah. So I'm kind of showing you what would happen. And then last year, I believe you had 5,000 go into reserves from your sponsorships that you were unspent.
And, Tim, for your knowledge, we have, sponsorship requests and guidelines. And they're basically like, if you're gonna have over 1,000 people and it's a free event in our district, we generally will consider $1,000, sponsorship. It's kind of like in line. So our lowest one is like, if you have less than 200, we'll, consider 250, and then like 500 or up to 500, yeah.
Tiered. And they have, I think he said they have 2,000 people coming down for the event.
They wrote 3,000.
3,000.
We had over 2,000 last year, they claim, and,
Insane.
307. Yeah. I have not been able to go to this because I was going for Falls that weekend, but now they're on different weekend.
Oh, yeah, 'cause they moved it this year.
Bluegrass is at the end of the.
I know, I keep seeing that advertisement and it's getting to me.
Yeah, so you should go. So,
Is it?
yeah.
I want to replicate and do that in Eau Claire.
It's really a lot of fun, and you have the ability to get already kind of set up with the other.
Right, I think it's such a-
Same thing.
Yeah, amazing.
And that's what it is in Group Falls,
Yeah.
it's just different venues and, so anyway, I think the executive board should recommend we approve it. This is a big event.
It sounds like a motion, was that?
A motion.
I will second.
Oh, geez, okay.
Further discussion on the motion? Then all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, that was all of us, and we have a motion, passed for a recommendation to approve this motion.
Just one other comment that I think is really great about this event is it really involves your big businesses, which is, other events, maybe they're held in Phoenix Park, which is great. But this is actually getting interaction with people inside of spaces that they can connect with communities. So events like this are quite outstanding.
Good picture.
Sorry, I just really love this event.
Update is the next one. I was authorized by the full board.
2025
Yeah,
capital
capital
improvement.
improvements, Julia.
You're just trying to get done.
2025 capital improvements. Thank you for checking or catching that one, because we do have a proposal in our packet from Thomas Lee. So reminder that capital improvements, were not included in the Ducky contract. So if we, move forward with any capital improvements this year, it will be through RFP or whatever level that the city purchasing, policy, mandates. So for example, if we were to want to get structural lighting, we would create an RFP for it, people would bid on it, and then we would award something. So last meeting, we discussed, are we interested in doing an RFP for, Phoenix Park power bollards? And even though the year before, we were trying to push it through and RCU was willing to donate $5,000 to the project, I felt like maybe it was just too late in the meeting, but I heard like crickets, basically. No one said, yes, go do that. So we did it. And here's another capital improvement, option. It has been done in Rockford, so on page like 46 of the packet.
Hartford.
Sorry,
That's okay.
Hartford. It shows,
Didn't grow up around here,
no,
eh?
it shows, a downtown with this structural lighting, and, Thomas Lee showed me the product, and I think it, that info, pamphlet is nice, that it shows that like, this is what it looks like during the day, like you can barely see it because it's in a crack with a cover, but then at night, it's pretty cool.
So, just to add a little bit, South Barstow had looked into this project about a year and a half ago, to continue the lighting program here. So there are definitely unique, circumstances related to a project like this, particularly because you'd be installing on private property. And so you would need to likely have a sort of lease agreement with each property that has this, in order to be able to have it connect. One of the cost savings is that these electrical connectors can connect up to 400 feet each direction, or is it 400 feet total? Might be 200 each direction, I think, but up to 400 feet, and then you can have a connector. So that means that electric would draw from one of the private properties and be charged to that building, and it wouldn't be every building. The electrical draw is very insignificant as it's LED, and we're waiting to still get some more information from.
Maybe like $100 a year.
Yeah, I think she had said it was $163 a year.
For the entire.
Yeah, so it's really low, but again, there's gonna be some, and probably free door expertise to help us figure out, that way. So I reached out to Hartford to see, I don't know what they'd be willing to share with us, but at least just some project guidelines on how to achieve this, faster than reinventing the wheel. So those are unique circumstances related to it. They are pretty awesome, and they can change color, according to whatever you feel like. Was the map included as
Yeah,
well?
The
Yeah.
last page of the packet. So this would be brought to the board as a, like, is this something that the board would be supportive of pursuing this year? Because it's a very complicated project and we don't want to run down this path without board support. So it would be like steps of figuring out, what the legal agreement would be, that you're paying the electric bill, but we're paying for the installation of these lights and controlling them. What would the, talking to each business to say, is this something you would participate in? So like, there's so many parts that would even be necessary before we go out for RFP, that this is like, something we have to be excited
We're well
about.
within the RFP requirements on something like this scale, obviously.
And we could scale it down, but, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to throw that in the right way, because then we do have to go through the full process now. There again, the agreements come to all kinds of things. There has to be maintenance agreements in place. If I decide that I'm changing the facade of my property, whose responsibility is it to remove, replace, those types of things. So obviously that gets a little, wordy.
Yeah, and he did mention too, of course, this is what's great about this is you can add on incrementally year after year, as you develop the program. So there's no set amount you need to start with. And then I was trying to think of something else. The other thing he had just mentioned, where he mapped out, and again, getting where you guys wanted to start, he was mapping out, according to what would be most visible alongside kind of the lights that come from Pablo. And then, he did mention too, that there's some buildings that are just, too tall to have this really be effective. And so, there's kind of a max height that is best. Not that it couldn't be done anywhere, but, for that to work.
I guess my other question for other cities that have done this,
Mondovi has a similar program too.
is there cooperative? Did a bid do this entirely, or was it a co-op between the business owners and bids where the business owners had buy into this as well? There might be some opportunity there. I don't know. If a property owner would, want to invest something into it themselves and not full burden on the bid.
So when South Barstow was pursuing this, they have a lighting committee, so they can kind of work through some of these. And they were all property owners, and all, so the question was kind of asked to that group, like, would you consider paying in, 50% of the initial installation costs, because it obviously, provides asset to your space. And, all of them agreed. They thought it was quite a deal that they would get for doing that, and probably wouldn't go out and do it on their own kind of thing. And so that was that, but that was addressed there, and that was kind of, then we got swept up with kind of all the craziness that has happened. But, where they left it was, basically they were gonna start going around and talking to business owners and seeing, gauging their interest if they would pay. Obviously nothing determined, but that was the route they were looking to go, was to split it down the middle.
Co-op type.
Yeah, 50%.
Absolutely.
But like knowing the children's museum might not have
Right.
options, like there could be maybe, I don't know, a desire for us to do that building without requiring, or I don't know, we could try to get donations or something, but other ideas for capital improvements, we've been kind of throwing lines out there, like send me if there's anything that you want to do. We talked about audio, the carrying costs or the expense of the service for music kind of scares me on that one.
I'm meeting with Converge tomorrow. So that's $15,000 annually for South Barstow to have them take care of all things music, sound, and copy on theirs. If it would be extended, I was gonna ask, like, is it another 15,000, or is that a cost that would be,
Split between.
slightly increased? Because of, again, if you were sharing the same content that South Barstow had and it's just expanding the area, I imagine there's wiggle room there. But I'm meeting with them tomorrow, so if you want me to ask.
Yeah, I mean,
Can they break down what is, kind of infrastructure, if you will, hard stuff versus what's ASCAP and BMI and
Yeah.
how they have to pay for all that stuff? And
So Converge is the ASCAP license carrier. And that's one of the reasons South Barstow had to go with Converge and at that level, because they didn't want to carry the ASCAP licensing
Right.
themselves. And so they needed to work with a service that did that. So that was Converge. The infrastructure and hardware was Audio Architects, out of Nominee, that installed. So that's totally separate. South Barstow has 4 zones. I think it's about 17 speakers. Back 10 years ago, it's approximately $1,000 a speaker. And they're supposed to have a warranty or shelf life of about 10 years. We haven't had any fail, and that was 11 years ago. So we're kind of waiting for that to happen. That install, and all of that from Audio Architects, again, a decade ago, was about $20K. So I have no idea what it would be now. We reached out to them, but they said they really needed to do a full mapping of the service area to see. The other issue that you guys would have, so Converge is moving their office and sound studio into Pablo, which is one of the things that we, to do this project 10 years ago, really needed to have happen, because of kind of where and I don't know words like this you do, where I'm gonna call it the main board.
The hub, the distribution.
Sure, that thing. It's kept in the parking garage. Yeah. So Converge now would be able to do it from there. And then I talked to Dave Solberg, and this is when he was head of engineering, about where a second one could be located for you guys. Do these 2 bridges an option for where the conduit comes in, and all the stuff that's way over my head because I'm not an engineer and an electrician. So
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 from
there you
the
go.
board, I feel like we, in order to spend anything out of our $60,000 dollars budgeted for this year, we really need to pick a direction. And even if it was like, love that lighting, maybe it's a 2026 project and let's focus on these this year,
Mhm.
like electrical and audio, or, installing electrical to the trees and then getting the trees wrapped is a very expensive, venture as well. But that's something that like I know people have interest in, so like without direction, we're not going to spend it because all of this takes, planning and time.
Is South Barstow going ahead with this lighting project, or are they still considering it as well?
They are in a hiatus for the last year because of the transition that has happened. However,
And their funding, decreased, right?
yeah, so when the assessments came back, because there was a decision made, in Milwaukee about, residential properties, which include apartment complexes, don't need to pay into the bid. So, they lost a considerable amount of money into their budget this year. That being said, they still have $20,000 to $30,000 in budget. Their current maintenance, they have 47 trees. It costs around $20,000 to service them annually. But they are still exploring this. They haven't had a lighting committee yet. Dave Strobel is the chair. He's been in Florida. He comes back in April, so we will see. They haven't set a lighting committee meeting, I doubt yet, right?
I don't think so.
Because he's the one who does like one-offs. I do know this is something that they will immediately be talking about when they're back to business, but,
Well, I'm thinking is, if one side will.
do it together.
Project, if you're looking at it, I'm the person who's gonna put it in,
Right.
it's probably cheaper to do it once than twice.
Totally.
But I
That's very
agree with
cool.
what you just said about, well, let's have a direction and let's move that way. This could be a 2-year or 3-year program and, one step at a time too.
Yeah. And Thomas, we did say, like, you don't have, like, I'm trying to give you ideas and this is how much this would cost, but we could, change the scope.
We should tell them
He
though.
was not so much worried about like the size of project, like whether you do like 3 buildings versus 9 buildings. He was more worried about the company who
Tariffs.
provides the product, has a full warehouse of this stuff right now. And
Sure.
they did that because they think that, the product's from China. And they don't know what the price is going to be going forward.
Yeah.
So if we kind of like buy from what they have right now, this is the price.
One more piece, slightly off this, but still on lighting. I just saw, and I believe maybe it was even on this week's agenda for the city council, that Rotary was coming back to reestablish an agreement on those lights on the bridge. So that, I don't know what the extent of that is, what that means going forward, maintenance there. At one time, we had, discussed assisting with some of that, and now Rotary is stepping back up. I guess they never lost interest in being involved, they just had some change in the guard and didn't keep up with it, so that has come overnight, possibly even was yesterday's meeting.
The council item meeting.
It's on the agenda, I think the consent agenda
Yeah.
tonight, I think.
Okay, tonight's, okay, yeah, one of them.
Okay.
So just one more comment. So the inception lighting, obviously this is probably a multi-year project considering where you're even sitting with operation plan stuff. So something that Decky could do is start the legwork for this, considering both bids are interested, gather the information, like reach out to Hartford and just see if we can get a copy of how they did this with private owners. And so that we have a discussion. Obviously, if you guys are putting money into reserves that you're not spending from capital improvement, if it all comes to head at the same time in 2 years for both projects, your money should still be there if you guys, put the work in. And I would assume the board would have built the trust with you to then take the next step. So, like I said, waiting to hear back. So hopefully, I'll share some of their trade secrets with me.
Okay. Go through the same conversation on Thursday and see if we can pick a horse.
Or if anybody's got any additional
Pick a horse.
suggestions.
Decky contract update, I was authorized by the full board to move forward with contract. We're getting pretty close. There was a draft morning that, I mean, I didn't know that you guys were both okay with the draft, so I just did my comments.
I have a
Did
few
you guys work on
issues.
it last week?
I didn't work on this, really. didn't.
Oh, okay.
We met the last time on this when we were all together in that room,
Okay.
Friday, 2 weeks ago.
But I don't think we have anything for the committee, right? Like, we're just not quite under contract yet, and we still have
Yeah.
some things that we need to work out.
Yeah, my question, just so I can say it here, because I didn't respond to your email, because there's so many threads now. The same with me, it was, noticing the payment procurement processes. I really just want that spelled out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't want to be in limbo, and I don't know that we can accommodate that if it is as strict as.
Do subcontractors need to follow the city processing policy? And I was reading it for the first part, that only applies to the decky. Well, yeah, let's not get into it.
Well, and
Because
my
then
other
we're-
concern is the payments, because like
Well, I thought we had already settled that, but we can put it in the contract. Subcontractors do not have to follow the procurement.
That's
But,
exactly the language I'm looking
for
for.
Decky, I'm concerned, you had a question in yours was, does Decky pay up front for everything only to be reimbursed, or do I get to have you contribute $50,000 into our account so that I can pay vendors? And it's just not clear to me, and I don't want to sign anything. And Emily was out of the country, so I'm not also gonna sign anything without her.
Yeah. Okay. So Decky has not been paid anything for the year. We're trying to focus on getting that in place so that they could be paid for January and February. And, as soon as March is done, March, but, like, full disclosure, we had, authorized the temporary contract. And that was only for like basically half payment and didn't include any of like, sponsorship, basically dollars for the year.
So at this point, there's been nothing paid out on that temporary as well? Okay.
There hasn't been a temporary, and correct me if I'm wrong, before you left, you said, no, let's work on getting this done for when you get back instead of working on that.
Right,
Right.
we didn't actually, we had a invoice that we approved, but there was no temporary contract drafted and entered into. And instead of working on 2 contracts, I was like, well, if we just get our real contract in place, then we'll be paying Decky like $3,000 a month instead of $1,500 a month, which better aligns with what we intended to do. And I thought that we could do this quickly enough rather than work on 2.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, Erin, if you want to email me your questions, I'll follow up on them.
I think it's pretty much what Julia asked. I feel like your last email contained, because you itemized them, and mine was mostly about, it just felt unclear that when I'm monthly, it says North Barstow Bidwell monthly invoices upon receipt of an invoice, it will be directed to neighbor service, blah, blah, blah. But all charges will be invoiced after Decky is charged unless Decky has prior approval. So that part is confusing.
And I think that, yeah, if we knew that only applied to Decky's fee.
Like the service fee for the
Versus-
40K.
Yeah,
That is
versus-
fine.
yeah.
But the other way, I would have to talk to my board, because it could be considerable amounts of money that I'm paying out of our budget. And we need that in our money market because we need to ensure our stability.
And it might not be reasonable then to like say next year add a capital improvements to your contract, because those are large sums of money and you're not gonna be asked to pay $65,000 and then, like invoice for it and get paid back a month later.
So I just want that clarified before we sign in. Again, like I said, Emily will be out of town through first week of April. And so I just need her to, approve anything I sign.
I'm sorry for the lengthy meeting, you guys. I really
They're all
thought-
like this.
I know, but I really don't want to go to monthly. We gotta get through, some of this stuff and then have shorter meetings. I actually promised Jason, because he participated on the executive committee without,
After requesting that.
enthusiasm. So I was like, we're gonna have shorter meetings. The kiosk update, I think we could just say that Erin and I are working through, but,
You should have an update. I feel like you should know.
but is this something for the executive committee or something for me?
I would think you guys all are interested in this fact. So first, Opna was bought out by Touch
That's
Source.
why it came from, it's different.
Very confusing. So I spoke to multiple people there. And I did give you guys the contract that was signed a while ago to kind of explain what was in there. One of the people that worked for Opna is now working for Touch Source, and I have correspondence into him, but he would be the only one that was like familiar or had worked on your specific project. They're based out of Minnesota and this company is out of Colorado, because that also just confused me quite a bit. That being said, go ahead, did you have a question?
Well, when we went down there and video conference with him, that Tally,
Kelly,
was
that's
his
it,
name.
yeah.
He was still there. At that point, they'd already been, I don't think it'd been fully crossed over. They'd been absorbed by Touch Source.
Sure.
And actually, I was just looking up his contact information. I do have, if it hasn't changed. Kiosk is physically working, but it is not connecting to the database right now.
Yes.
So-
Did you hear more about this?
I haven't. I was just gonna call him this week, but
Well, I have a call into him and he's supposed to be calling me back, but the reason I wanted to point this out to you is because when I spoke to two different women, from two different departments who looked at this bill, and they think that this first line item is an error and it should only be one, and that this is for units, that it's $180 per unit. So this, to them, two different people were reading that you have 15 kiosks. I don't know that that's true, because when I talked to Tully last year,
Yeah.
they had
Service
related
hours.
it to service hours, although I thought he said 16, which is also weird.
Yeah.
I am not trusting that information, but I'm on the route to find out.
Okay. And
So,
this should be our last bill of this size, and then
yes, and your contract ends May 13th if you wouldn't renew. Yeah. So that's interesting to know about the connectivity. I was using it the other day and it didn't, like, it was showing stuff, but it wouldn't.
right, it's working. It's connected to the network. I was able to get out and ping things and make it work, but it's not pulling data off of it. And my question
Yeah.
there was, I don't know where
Oh,
Visitor
you know
Claire
what?
stands right now with their database, because they're making changes as well. So that might be our issue as well. I don't know. I didn't dig into it enough yet to know.
I think that is the issue. There's probably links that, because now Decky's not there. So Graham Barnes has the list of, I don't know if they're called broken links or incomplete links or whatever, and he was working through them to do the redirects, but I'm not sure where they are, so, I'll make sure that conversation
Okay.
I think
happens.
that's
All right.
it.
Okay, this darn kiosk, so cute though.
Working.
Planter, tree grate, banner, and maintenance. Yeah, Erin's been working on this stuff. Even though
So,
we're not quite under.
yeah, so I need to be under contract before we can contract with Lily Bees to do work. She is purchasing plants now that will go into your planters, so obviously would love to get paid for that, so the sooner the better, we can make that happen. And then she'll start her work, I mean, she's doing planning and things now, but in mid-April. And then we
But
work,
she's fine for our planters, our 8.
yes.
Okay.
She's fine for your planters as well. And then obviously the streetscape maintenance, she's gonna be doing a better job of tracking exactly kind of what she does for you, so you can get a better idea. So that's good. And then banner maintenance. Do you guys have any questions on that? It would just be a matter of, we need to finish it up so I can officially hire her somewhat soon. Okay. She's been approved for South Barstow, so it will be the same landscaper working in both areas. She did provide a plant list to South Barstow, so I have an idea of what she's putting in the planters for you this year.
I'm fine with just the same.
Samesies, got it. And then for banners, Thomas Lee Lighting, who also met over the Inception Lighting, same vendor. We located the map of South Barstow bid banners. So that exists, which is amazing. North Barstow bid, we have both, but yes, North Barstow bid banners. Talked to Sean, he will be, again, coming down for South Barstow right after the Jazz Crawl to put up their summer banners and the marathon banners, so at that time, which is coming up in 3 weeks, would love to be able to then go through and replace any North Barstow banners that are messed up, which from my count, which is not all the way down there yet, there's at least 5 or 6 that need replacement. He has them all in his possession. I should let you know that for banners, Coob tournament that's held here, it will be celebrating like 100 years of Coob in 2027. They are already looking ahead to working with Visit Eau Claire and interested in getting banners to be put up in the downtown districts. South Barstow had a program like this and kind of does this. They work with Jazz and Marathon. So I would just need to know at some point if North Barstow is interested also in whether you want to change out banners or if you would want, you know, things that are going on in Eau Claire to be allowed to have their banners there and how that looks. Whether South Barstow covers the installment cost for those banners, the organization purchased the banner, and that's considered a sponsorship or donation to their, like Jazz, like an in-kind donation to Jazz or Marathon. So for future. But in April, you'll have your replacement banners up. And you guys have quite a bit of them in storage, so I'll get them up, yeah, like.
But I did add new banners to the list of potential capital improvements for 2025. And we get a price for
Yep.
what if we did want to swap them out?
They're roughly $60 a banner, for the physical cost of the banner. It depends how many you order.
But what if, like, we said, okay, yeah, we want ours on rotation too? Like,
For Thomas Lee. So I get the service is different than the printing. So new banners cost $60, you know, one time for the new banner. And then the service fee is roughly $85 an hour. And the biggest part is when they're not able to access because of parking issues. So it does take a few days. And then the cost of the lift to get that downtown, which is generally about $200 to bring the lift down. And that's why if they are going to be doing it with North and South Barstow, I would need to be able to let him know how to split that.
let's talk about it offline of like, if we were to bring it to the board, what information we would need to put together to say like, this is an option, this is where it would be paid from, this is how much it would cost you to approve it. Becky, update. I won a ton of awards at the Duckies on behalf of our bid, including
Downtown Twin Award.
Oh, there you go. I didn't make it down, so.
I know, so you couldn't win this year, but she won because she looked
No, I'm
similar to
so
a
back.
duck.
With my mask. Okay, what upcoming events do you
Oh
have
my
here?
God, there's so much going on. So we got our raffle license, which is great. So at the Duckies, we were able to hold our first raffle. We made over $1,000 on that, which is remarkable. Duckies obviously looking for alternative funding sources, considering everything that's happening federally and limited access to grants, as well as just not knowing kind of our funding from the city or the bids moving forward. Our next raffle is going to be our very first downtown dive meat raffle at Clancy's this Sunday. Don't miss it. It's going to be so great. We're working with local farmers. We have Blazer Farms. We have a Deutsch Family Farms, and then we have, she's changed names. I call it Around the Table
Right.
Farms.
Maybe save the full pitch for the full board because
I
we're
want you guys to
over
go.
time. I know.
I won't be here, so I can't.
I'm too.
Anyway, come to our meat raffle, other events. We're doing everything right now. Downtown cleanup is happening on the 19th. So Ducky will have, and need volunteers for that downtown. Jazz Crawl, which we are a partner with, as well as Eau Claire Marathon. Barstow Street Block Party will be happening again this year as we're the last 3 miles before the end of the race. Worked with them. And then there's just so much I can't even. Sidewalk Saturdays is coming, First Fridays. I'm trying to do all of it. We did find out for Fall Fest, we'll have those applications coming out soon, but we won't have use of the Four Corners lot. So we have to make some major arrangements for planning, which stink. And I don't know that we'll be able to get approved for our licensing. I'm hoping we will, for beer, so we make money off of it. We're busy. We might have an intern. I need help. Volunteers, come out and hang out. We got meat rifle shirts for sale. I don't know what else to say. I'm exhausted.
Any questions on Becky event? City staff updates. Sorry that I forgot to introduce you, Erin.
I'm Erin.
I think the only thing, council tonight, they're reviewing the appointment process and potentially making a decision on that. So I think that's really it that pertains to you guys.
Anybody gonna go?
Oh, I
Like
should mention from
quadruple
last
books,
night,
right?
it's just important, so, cause it's right between your two bids, in front of Adante. Right now, there's some weird parking spots that are allowed kind of between the two crosswalks. Right across from,
I'll have to look at it, yeah.
yeah, it's like two spaces, it's super awkward, people can park there, but then it creates visibility issues. They're looking to eliminate those parking spots as, an option, and again, it's just kind of right hovering between your two bids, so.
Yeah, they should have took the paint off when they put the crosswalks in, because you can't park within 15 feet of a crosswalk and you can't park within 50 feet of a bus stop. So by law, you can't park there, but there's spots
Yeah, it's
painted there.
confusing.
So they'll be putting up signs and taking care of
Taking
that.
the paint off.
Okay.
Another one of those places you can sneak in and park.
I parked there by mistake. I think it was snow covered and it was really early in the morning and neighborhood service or the CSO or whatever, he like shouted from across the street. He's like, that's not really a parking spot anymore. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I'll back up. But so they're doing their job.
Anything else, Billy?
Nope.
Okay, other announcements? And we are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.
One announcement, I will be out of town from the 4th to the 11th of April because I'm going to Mexico.
Yay, and is Matt gonna attend our meeting on Thursday?
He's coming.
Oh, you're not
Thursday.
leaving until the 4th?
Yeah, I'll be here for your meetings. I think so, so meetings, but just in case there's any planning, thanks.
All the things.
Too many things.
And you're on Thursday. and I
So where are you going?
DC.
For what?
Multiple things, but taking the whole through.
Oh, fun.